So the question that we had was regarding Tesla and about the trading plan from last night and trading plans sort of from every night, and what is it you're looking for on Tesla when you're putting these things together, and how is it that certain stocks manage to react differently in the morning than other stocks. So Meta, for example, is not an off-the-bell kind of a trade. Tesla is an off-the-bell kind of trade. And if you look at last night's plan, then what you see is we had Tesla long, the bottom band 306.21, the next band 307.51, 307.51 up to 308.52, 308.52 up to 310.10. And as I said, Tesla is always potentially a trade that will take around the open. So Apple is the opening trade, and Apple is based on, we've got all the levels for Apple going back however many days, and we know exactly where the buy orders and sell orders tend to be on Apple. Now on Tesla, we're looking for something that happens right around the first 5 minutes. Microsoft, Meta, NVDA, those guys were looking for something a little bit further into the trading session. But Tesla, sort of because of the true ranges around the open and the amount of movement that we can see, we've got a real high probability that we're going to run the bands, so that we could have a run of these bands. And once the bands are set up, my favorite thing to do is look for, are they around the central pivot? So if it's around the central pivot, you've got a really good shot at an inflection. Red line is the central pivot, and that's where we're assuming that price is going to gravitate. That's going to be the fulcrum. That's going to be sort of the point where things oscillate. So in this case, you go back through yesterday's data, and we can see, we've gone and isolated the places that we think price is going to inflect. So you want to take I'm taking the ranges going into the latter part of the session. I'm looking for my bias, and then I'm also trying to see, right, where is, on yesterday's data, what's the volume weighted average price of that big swing move? It's right there at the pivot line. So today the pivot is going to have a lot of influence, because the volume weighted average price has to do with where institutions do their buying and selling. Institutions aren't just putting an order out there. Institutions are breaking an order up into a lot of small bits. Those small bits go out through a program, through an algorithm. That algorithm is usually tied to the volume weighted average price for a session, and then it goes and considers the volume weighted average price for a move. So you want to make sure, if you're the guy responsible for putting the order together and you send it off to whoever the brokers are who are going to deal with it, and I say brokers because typically you don't tell your broker whether you're a buyer or a seller. Your broker just knows he's got the buy order and probably someone else has a sell order, and really what you're trying to do is drive price toward that VWAP. Well, as you go through and assess where are the support and resistance levels, I'll just use this line here to go and, okay, so 306.21 yesterday, you can see that runs right through all those highs, right, all those places that price bumped and then later came back down right around 14.20, 14.25. It comes down, tries to poke back down through there, can't do it, pops higher. Where's the next resting point? So if you look right there, you see there was a lot of volume by price activity there. So this node from yesterday, still important today. Obviously a place something happened today, but lots of stuff happened there yesterday. So we're going to focus on that as one of the volatility bands that we want on the plan, on the register for today. So your gouge sheet has that threshold level. Next up, going to the close, you can see trading got into the box. 308.51 or thereabout, up to about 310.10. So that area also has a lot of activity. So if you look at The right side of the chart, your volume by price data is, you get a nice histogram there. A lot of price activity was constrained in that area, and you're expecting that if price gets back into there again, it's going to do what it did yesterday. It's going to get up to that high band at 310.10, and then it's probably going to ricochet, which is just what it did this morning, pops back down into those threshold levels. And then, of course, today what we're doing is we're going to reevaluate as the session starts moving on. Well, where are the levels today? So right now, I'm going to say right there, about 311.01 would be the next one that I'm looking at. And then maybe we're going to have one up here at 311.83. We need to see a retest of that. But 311.01 definitely had a strong reaction move. You had 3 times there that's the place that price moved back down to 310.10 again. And it just, goes and says that's the next area that we're expecting to be significant in terms of the price action that we're going to see on this. But that's really what it's about, is just going through and we're figuring out how the pieces of the puzzle come together and where are things confluent. So where are we seeing that price is giving us some predictable behavior based on the volume weighted average price, based on the volatility bands, and based on the volume by price data that's out on the right side of the chart there. So this morning, it came down, it dipped 306.21, and our bet is it's going to get pulled back into that pivot. Since it started above the pivot and came down, our best expectancy is we're going to go back up and retest the high of that first bar at least. And then what we're hoping to see is that we go ahead and run the bands. And that's exactly what happened. So when Julie says it ran the bands, then, what she's talking about is she took the trade from down here, and, we saw a move that got us into that top band of yesterday's trading. So now for the rest of the day today, what we want to do is see, can we get some kind of measured move up and out of these bands, or are we going to get a move back down through? This is a directional trade today, so I would not be looking to short this based on yesterday's bands. You could short based on that infield fly setup a bar ago. That's a different story. But if we're looking at this from the vantage point rather of the volatility bands, then we've got a long bias until this tells us we don't have a long bias anymore. So about 11:30, we're going to go back and take a look at these again and see, can we reframe where the volatility bands are based on what happened today. Right now, it's bunched up in yesterday's bands, and we were able to add 311.01 and 311.83 to the top. As the day moves on, we'll see if there's more opportunities. It's a Friday. It's typically a slow day. So we're going to see where we wind up as the day goes on, okay? So that's the explanation of what goes on with the volatility bands.